Dragon Age the Veilguard is not going to go down in history as a beloved title. Basically, everybody on the internet roasted it, except for the paid chills, and now an analyst is saying that it faces an uphill battle to even match Inquisition's launch sales. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I don't think anybody is going to be surprised when I say it seems that this game underperformed. The Steam numbers were abysmal. We do not have console numbers, so maybe it did fantastic on console, but we heard from an insider at a retail chain with over 900 locations that it was receiving mass refunds. We do not know if that's actually true. Take it with a grain of salt, of course, but now this analyst is coming out saying it's not off to a great start. It says Dragon Age the Veilguard launched on October 31st, and we've already got a tiny window into how well it's selling, which, by the way, I do not think that launching on Halloween was a very smart idea. I think it's okay to launch on a holiday if the game has to do with that holiday. Like if they released Batman Arkham Origins today and it was released on Christmas, or the recent Arkham Shadows game that's set on 4th of July. If they had released that on 4th of July, it would have received a hell of a lot more hype, but I don't think on Halloween was very smart. It says, though, it debuted at number 6 on Circana's report of the top-selling games in the US for the full month, just after Metaphor, but its placement on a single chart doesn't quite tell the full story. Now, Matt Piscatella at Circana is following the report to get a little more information on how well Veilguard was doing, and he offered some context. So, going into this, he of course points out that EA does not provide Steam data for the best-selling titles chart, so while other games including Metaphor had Steam digital sales reflected, Dragon Age's numbers are only for the PlayStation and Xbox, though if you look at the player count and the all-time peak on Steam, it is terrible compared to a lot of other games that have released this year, like Black Myth Wukong, for example. I mean, we're talking 2.5 million. Last year, Hogwarts Legacy, it had 800,000. Veilguard couldn't even top 100,000 players, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, 100K is nothing to scoff at, true, but it's in an established franchise by one of the most recognizable developer names within the industry. It says where Dragon Age the Veilguard's PC volume included, it would have placed much higher on the best-selling titles chart, but I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. He goes on to say it's been a good but not great launch. Dragon Age the Veilguard did not reach the launch week sales numbers of either Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Dragon's Dogma 2, and it will be a bit of an uphill battle to reach Inquisition's lifetime sales. Now, first of all, good does not cut the mustard anymore. When a company has put a decade of time and hundreds of millions of dollars into creating an experience, they don't want good. They want near perfection. They want amazing. They want fantastic. So good is just not good enough. Now, of course, that's really on them for hiring activists, for allowing these people to add identity politics into this game and add a modern message. If they did not have terms like transgender and non-binary and forcing you to pick your pronouns, it wouldn't have blown up the way it did on social media. People wouldn't have roasted it, and they probably would have gotten more sales because there are so many people out there who are just looking for really fun video games as a form of escapism, not as a form of being preached to. But good, again, just doesn't cut it. It's their own fault for hiring these people creating this game, though. And they also talk about how it did not reach the launch week sales levels of either Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Dragon's Dogma 2, which is not good because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth underperformed. It says Square Enix had said the title did not meet their internal expectations. Meanwhile, Capcom reported that Dragon's Dogma 2 was a success for them, having passed 2.5 million copies sold as of this past April, so it's been months since that report, and we don't have an updated figure, but I don't think that it passed any other major milestones like 5 million copies sold, or else they would have reported it. It says, though, we do have a bit more comparison context through sales numbers in the UK, courtesy of GamesIndustry.biz. Veilguard debuted at number 7 on the UK sales charts, but its first week sales were over 18% lower than those of Dragon's Dogma 2 and nearly 21% below those of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, keep in mind that IGN gave this game a 9 out of 10, so of course they're trying to make it seem like, oh, it's really not that big of a deal, that, oh, it's only 18%, it's only 21%. It's okay, it's still got a lot of time to go before we actually get the full numbers for November. You guys are just being too hasty when it comes to trashing this game, blah, blah, blah. It did not sell the way that they expected it to. And again, if they just listened to fans of the franchise and they tried to make a continuation of Inquisition and make a game for fans of Dragon Age, it probably would have sold a lot better. And we know the numbers have not been good no matter how they try to paint it, because we have these Steam charts at least, and over on Steam, it's not going so well. The all-time peak was at release with 89,418 players, which isn't the worst number I've ever seen compared to Dustborn's of 82, compared to Concord's beta, which had 2,500 people, right? It's not the worst, but first of all, we've seen a major drop off, which isn't shocking given people have played through the full main story. They've moved on. That's just what happens with single player games. It's just the nature of them. But it's an established franchise. It's BioWare. This game had a lot of press, and it really just, at the end of the day, got kind of wrecked. Then you also have to take into consideration how this game is rated generally unfavorable by gamers. Now, of course, the media would also say, oh, gamers aren't to be trusted. You can only trust the critic scores because they're giving it 9 out of 10s, but gamers are far more honest than reviewers actually are. I do not trust the Access media. Personally, I will always call them out on their BS, and over the years, they've given me no reason to trust them. And in this case, the user score and the critic scores are vastly different. Gamers are providing their opinions, saying the game has lost everything that was good in its predecessors. The characters and story are weak and sterile. It's not the intricate dark fantasy world we knew anymore. Graphics are good from a technical point of view, especially the hair, but the art direction is terrible. Body proportions are wrong, and there is an overall cartoonish feel. I totally and completely agree. And then you get into the combat, which I did not think was terrible, but there are a lot of other games that do it significantly better, like Hogwarts Legacy, for example. It is similar when you are using a mage. When you are using a warrior and you've got your sword and shield, it's very similar to God of War. These other games just do it significantly better. I didn't think it was terrible, but it was not the best by any means. One of our favorite series has been hijacked, stripped of its core values, and brought to its knees. This is a time of mourning, friends. It is very sad because it does not feel like Dragon Age. It just feels like a very toned down, sterile Dragon Age. It feels like they made it for 13-year-olds. This is a problem I have with Dungeons and Dragons now, is that it just feels very politically correct. And it's very sad because these franchises used to be dark and gritty and brutal. And sure, you were always the hero in Dragon Age. You could never be like fully evil and murder everybody and have all of these insanely intense decisions that could screw up the world around you in a drastic way. But you could still be rude, and you can't particularly be in this game. You have to basically be nice to everyone, unless you are at the end of the game, and spoiler alert, you set the companions in the wrong categories during the final fight. Something akin to Mass Effect 2 if you haven't played Veilguard, and you just let them die and you get the worst, in quotes, ending, which in my opinion is the best ending. It's not a good game overall. And if you have previously enjoyed Dragon Age, you're probably not going to enjoy the Veilguard. So right now we're hearing that it has not done particularly well, that it is facing an uphill battle to even match Inquisition's launch sales, an analyst says, and it also is doing bad compared to several other games that have released this year. So I will be keeping my eye on this situation to see if BioWare makes any sort of statement, but its latest game is not off to a great start. But that's all that I had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.